All right. What makes Robin Williams irreplaceable as Mrs. Doubtfire?
I'm a hip old granny who could hip-hop, bebop, dance till you drop, and yo-yo make a wicked cup of coo-coo.
This is Mrs. Doubtfire. It's a movie that should have never worked as well as it did. The premise of a man impersonating a housekeeper in order to sneak into his ex-wife's home, violate the terms of a custody agreement, and secretly spend more time with his kids is objectively terrifying. Yet Mrs. Doubtfire is still broadly looked back on as a beloved classic.
I don't know if you. I really hope they never try to make a Mrs. Doubtfire 2. Unless they did already, and I just didn't hear about it. Oh my gosh. Bro, when I first saw Mrs. Doubtfire, it wasn't in theaters. When I first saw the movie, how old was I? I was probably like 10, 11, 12 years old or something like that. I think it was like on the TV. So I must have missed it in the theaters, but like I saw Robin Williams in other movies before I discovered that Mrs. Doubtfire was Robin Williams. So when I realized that and I heard the premise of it, I was like, "What? Okay, sure." And then when I had to because when you're a little kid, you don't really understand what the nuance of certain things, and I was like, okay, there's a lady right there. But the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, that's okay. He's getting in a costume, and it's like how what was that one movie? What do you call it? When they're like in a dream, in a dream, in a dream. The first time I watched it, I was like, oh my god, this is awesome. But I didn't realize what was happening, and then I had to watch it again, and then I realized, oh my god, this is actually what's happening. I had to watch this movie multiple times to realize how awesome it was.
And we have the talent of one man to thank for it.
Surprise!
The general movie-going audience fell in love with Mrs. Doubtfire. Or perhaps the more accurate statement is that the general movie-going audience fell in love with Robin Williams. Of course, you can't discount the work the rest of the cast and crew put into the project either. Chris Columbus's directorial style made for a movie that felt close-knit and personal, while still leaving room for plenty of pretty outlandish humor.
Dun dun dun, it's a dinner show. Dun dun dun. Hey, where you from? Thank you, I'm gonna make you lunch. Thank you very much.
The rest of the cast is incredibly solid, and the award-winning makeup and wardrobe department should also be recognized for all they did. But even so,
because whenever Robin Williams is in the grandma outfit, or it's crazy because you can kind of see it, but you can't really.
Every bit of work that went into this movie was centered around the star actor. Robin Williams played the main character, Daniel Hillard, with the same childlike whimsy that carried him through several of the biggest projects.
Oh my god, look at all these. Look at all these. Genie. Oh shit, what was that movie? Oh crap, I forgot. I haven't watched, I've seen all of these movies, but I haven't seen them in so long. And I'm just noticing this now. Why does Aladdin's pants not have a slit in them? It looks like he's wearing a dress. Whatever. And then, oh my god.
Projects in his career.
Hello!
That scene.
Oh, I'm sorry to frighten you, dear. I must look like a yeti in this getup.
But that specific brand of playfulness was especially necessary for his role in Mrs. Doubtfire. It was a role which could have devolved into disturbing territory quite quickly.
It could have.
Take, for example, the prank call sequence. It's one of the funniest bits in the movie, but it could have gone really wrong without Williams' stellar.
Yeah, if you just think about it from the just a movie perspective and remove the actors and just read it as a story, it is very creepy. There's a lot of creepy aspects in it that because it's so creepy, you have to add layers of comedy on top of it.
Performance to ground it.
Are your kids well behaved, or do they need a few light slams every now and then?
I I'll have to get back to you.
The
Do you like
concept of a man
slams?
obsessively calling his ex-wife and impersonating nanny prospects is creepy and obnoxious.
Yeah.
Yet Williams made it fun to watch. His talents for improvisation and impressions made the whole thing far more charming than it has any right to be on paper. There are a lot of similarly difficult scenes that were made wholesome and hilarious purely because the star power of Robin Williams. Some of them were so far out in left field that the production crew didn't even think they'd work. The mugging is one such scene that, in the hands of a less skilled actor, could have felt way too over the top. But Williams' ability to seamlessly transition from scaring people on the street to daintily carrying a purse is just astonishing. He really embodied the character of Mrs. Doubtfire through both his vocal talent and his general physicality under all the
That little mug scene, it was like, that is probably like a skill flex to see if Robin Williams could do it. To go from, like, he's walking around with his purse trying to cross the street, and then all of a sudden he gets mugged, so he has to do like a masculine thing and like defend himself to like fend off like a dude, and he's using his man voice. So the mugger is like, "What the fuck?" And for him to be able to go into like man mode and then completely revert back into nanny mode, that's like the skillful like thing of acting that you can just like turn it on and off just like that, which is so cool. But like at the time I didn't realize it. It's only like on watching it like again right now where it's like, dang, that's actually really cool.
hair and makeup effects.
What part of England are you from?
Here and there, dear. All over, really.
Accent's a little kind of muddled there.
Really? Well, so's your tan.
There's a softness in his eyes and a delicate slowness to his movements. It makes the audience forget they aren't actually looking at a sweet elderly lady who just so happens to have the sense of humor of, well, Robin Williams. But it wasn't just Mrs. Doubtfire who was soft and sweet. Remember that Williams essentially played two characters in this movie, and the character of Daniel held his own as an eager, amiable father figure. There's an early scene in Mrs. Doubtfire where Daniel is picking his children up from school. Williams is gentle.
I mean, yes, it's two characters, but from the perspective of this guy, he's essentially playing like three characters, like the husband, because when you're around your kids, you have to act a certain way, but when you're around your wife, you're going to act a certain way. But then he's just going to put up a costume, so he's going to act a certain way again because he has to. So, I mean, I forgot like the plot of the movie in that, like, I forgot like why they separated in the first place. So he probably has to have some sort of animosity like towards the wife, but he's not going to show it in front of the kids, but he wants to be really loving, and she's like allowing him to do that in front of the kids. So he's doing that. But then you get the scenes where he's just in the nanny outfit and he's like acting like this sweet old lady.
Energy is on full display here, and it's immediately clear to the audience just from the way he smiles that these children are everything to him. He is a safe and loving person in their lives. This was all intentional on the part of Williams and Columbus, the latter of which has specifically pointed to this scene as one of his favorite character moments in the film.
The smile on Robin's face when he first sees the kids says it all for me. These children are his life, his reason for being.
And there's no doubt as to why. It's difficult to imagine any other actor giving us the same warmth as Williams does here. Altogether, the performance lent the movie a sort of heartwarming credibility. The story was believable, and the character was likable largely because Robin Williams himself was believable and likable.
What do you mean you
He's a
do
good actor.
voices?
I do voices.
Yeah!
We've come to this planet looking for intelligent life. Oops, we made a mistake.
But his on-screen performance is only half the story. Williams's mere presence on set was enough to make the movie that much more charming. 5-year-old Mara Wilson, who plays the part of Daniel's youngest daughter Natalie, spends most of the aforementioned after-school scene in Williams's arms while he banters with the two older children. But there's an adorable moment between Daniel and Natalie where they hiss playfully at one another. It's a great illustration of how close they are as father and daughter, and it was entirely unscripted. Those little asides demonstrate just how comfortable these kids were with the way Williams presented himself both in front of the camera and just generally on set. But that trend didn't stop with the child performers. By nature, Robin seemed to provide a place for actors to open up and really play. Thankfully, Chris Columbus.
I would have to imagine that anytime Robin Williams was out and about just like interacting with people, he probably had a very large like social battery when he interacted with people because I don't know, maybe he just liked being around people and like talking and like just generally enjoyed being around people and making them laugh. So I would have to imagine you have to have a lot of like your social battery just has to be like massive compared to like a regular person.
Columbus trusted him enough to help facilitate that environment too. As such, some of the most memorable moments in Mrs. Doubtfire are the product of improvisation.
Thank you. This is the only two-piece suit that I ever wear. Yeah? Sorry, I don't have one. The tent maker died.
You sure now?
Oh, no, really. I think I would blind people with these white legs.
Improvisation on the part of Williams, yes, but especially on the part of the other actors playing off of Williams. Most of the dialogue between Daniel and his brother Frank is improv, as well as virtually everything that happens between Mrs. Doubtfire and the bus driver.
That's
and
so
of course,
cool.
the bit everyone remembers where Mrs. Doubtfire hides behind a mask of melting icing was entirely improvised by Robin Williams, while Anne Haney's Mrs. Sellner had to sit there as a comically stone-faced scene companion.
Oh my
It's
God.
a true statement.
That's probably got to be the hardest job right there. Not having to not laugh when Robin Williams is right in front of you trying to make you laugh. That's probably got to be a really hard job.
Into what kind of man Robin Williams was when he was able to not only steal a scene with improvised jokes, but step back and give other actors the freedom and support necessary to do the same. That's not something many actors can claim to be capable of, and Mrs. Doubtfire as a whole is better for it.
Look at this. My first day as a woman, I'm getting hot flashes.
Those small moments and bits of dialogue from characters like Natalie, Frank, and Mrs. Sellner made the movie feel genuine. It reminded the audience that the secondary characters were more than just springboards for Williams's jokes. That additional bit of humanity helps to drive the emotional core of the movie home. And it was Robin, not as a performer, but a person, who helped the actors feel comfortable enough to make those choices. The culmination of all of this comes in the form of a scene a little over halfway into the movie. The titular Mrs. Doubtfire and Daniel's ex-wife, Sally Field's Miranda Hillard, have a conversation in the family's kitchen. It starts out innocent enough before segueing into some of the most brilliant improv of the movie. Williams delivers several great jokes about Mrs. Doubtfire's late husband, and Sally Field plays off of him perfectly.
It was a drink that killed him.
How awful. He was an alcoholic.
No, he was hit by a Guinness truck.
All the while,
That's such a good like segue. Oh my God. Like it's a joke. It's like a segue joke. Oh my God.
Williams maintains the physicality of Mrs. Doubtfire with ease, allowing for only one intentional slip.
That had to have been like really tough. Like not only having to have the voice of a nanny, but also having to have all the right like face expressions, having to move like a grandma and whatnot, because Robin Williams was like a pretty athletic dude. He was like very he like used his body a lot whenever he would do like a lot of his comedy. So it's like you have this you physically have like a suit on you to like emulate like the woman, but then you just have to keep selling it with like you got to hunch over, you got to shuffle your feet, you can't swing your arms so much or whatever. But god dang, when he was in this like get up, it's like it's super believable.
Of the persona after a damning comment from Miranda.
Who needs a husband when I've got you?
Surely you don't mean that, dear.
Well,
Oh, that's so sweet.
It's playful and fun in that way only Robin Williams could produce. But while the audience is laughing, the movie slips into genuine sincerity. They address why Miranda was unhappy in her marriage to Daniel, and for the
here you
first
go.
time, he understands that divorce is really the best option for the two of them.
I didn't like who I was when I was with him. I would turn into this horrible person. I didn't want my kids growing up with a mother like that.
You can see that Daniel is struggling to maintain Mrs. Doubtfire's pleasantly neutral expression, while he grapples with the reality that the woman he was married to used to cry herself to sleep at night. It's a heartbreaking and beautiful moment that Williams really hits the emotionality of. But it's cushioned by those improvised jokes that made the audience feel as comfortable in the scene as the actors felt with Robin on set. It made the scene, and indeed the whole movie, a joy to watch. And he is the reason for all of it. We may never see an actor like Robin Williams again. The man was truly one of a kind, and there is perhaps no better example of that fact than his role in this movie. With a different actor at the wheel, Mrs. Doubtfire could have come off as a hateful horror show.
It
But
could've.
the sheer talent and authentically delightful nature of Robin Williams made it into a classic fit for the whole family. Thanks so much for watching today's video all the way to the end. Let us know. Do you think Mrs. Doubtfire is still a great movie? Sound off in the comments, like this video, and
yeah,
subscribe
still
to
great.
Nerdstalgic for more content just like this.
Yeah, Mrs. Doubtfire. I really hope, because you know like how Hollywood does, like it's you know, they randomly will do sequels to movies that don't need sequels anymore. It's like, just please stop. I really hope they don't mess with this, because if they do, there's no shot you're gonna get anyone close to Robin Williams. I mean, maybe you could, but it still wouldn't be the same vibe. I mean, I don't think, but yeah, another good video, man. Freaking awesome. And I'm looking forward to seeing more, but that's pretty much it for me. I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right, later.